Are you having a lot of food noise these days or feeling like you are emotionally eating? This can get worse in perimenopause, and this is the episode for you. Tune in to learn why it is getting worse in perimenopause, what doesn't work, and 3 steps to stop emotional eating in their tracks. Let's dive in.
What's up, sister? Welcome back to the Period Whisperer podcast, the show helping perimenopause and menopause women de-stress your body and decode what it's saying to you so you can own your own health, energy, and weight loss again. If you're new, I'm so happy you're here. I'm Bria. I'm your host, a recovering people pleaser and hustle addict turned functional and holistic hormone specialist. Let's lean in and learn what your body is saying to you.
Hey there, sisters. Welcome back to the Period Whisperer podcast. As you know, today is one of our expert guest interviews, and we have the amazing Holly Bertone here, who is also the host of a podcast, Your Midlife Comeback Story, and she has such a fascinating story. We're going to be talking today about, some big myths women believe that are holding them back about emotional eating, and I think you're just going to love this. So, welcome, Holly, to the show.
Thanks so much, Bria, for having me on the Period Whisperer. And I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited for you.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this conversation.
Yeah, we were just saying before we hopped on, I think I love the more we can just collaborate with other women in this pocket to get this info out, because we live in this pocket, right? This is sort of where we are. And I always remember thinking, if I don't know these things as a woman in wellness, how is anyone who has like a beautiful career in something that isn't wellness going to ever know these things? So
Right.
I'm grateful for you. So you have a really cool story, and I'm going to start with it because, you're probably the first person I've ever spoken to who was in the FBI. You were the chief of staff for Counterintelligence, I think. That's what
Yes, correct.
So you have my attention.
Okay.
Like a certified holistic health coach. So tell us that story. Tell us how that happened and why you made this like career pivot.
Yeah. So again, I'm Holly Bertone, and I help women in midlife break free from emotional eating so they can achieve a healthy and sustainable weight. It is simple as that. And I really just want to say, Bria, before I jump in, because I admire your work in the show, and we were just talking before we hit record, I went into chemical menopause at 39, and I didn't have anyone my age to talk to, and podcasts weren't around then. I'm 53 now. Podcasts weren't around then. So I just really appreciate you having this resource for all of the women listening. And to everyone listening, I really want you to leave Bria a 5-star rating and review, because it is going to help her reach so many more people. And it would mean a lot to me as a guest. I just left a rating and review. I know when you do it, it takes a minute for it to actually show up, but please do that, because it really is going to mean a lot to me. And I know it's going to mean a lot to her. So
I mean, that just speaks to what a good human you are. That was really thoughtful. It means the world to me. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for this. Like I said, you're providing a resource I wish that I had all those years ago.
I'm sure. Yeah, that's a lot. Okay. So tell us about you.
So let's dive in. And before I jump in, I really want the listeners to think about this, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of women out there who are curious to know. I mean, first of all, the FBI to health coach thing is, and emotional eating is a story in and of itself. But they may have asked themselves at one point, how is it that I can be smart and successful and just crushing everything at life, the work and the family, and I'm a pillar of my community and all these things, but the same strategies that work with all of that, it doesn't work with losing weight. But even more than that, I know a lot of women are facing this uncontrollable food noise and these obsessive cravings and the mindless snacking. And that's why I really love this platform to share, because when we talk about topics like emotional eating, there's a lot of shame that's around it. And a lot of people don't want to, kind of where perimenopause and menopause was 10, 15 years ago. We were kind of in this space where we just don't talk about it. And so I just really am appreciative of this platform to share my story, to share this message, because there are so many women out there who are dealing with this, and they don't know where to turn. They don't know how to stop. They don't know how they got here, and they keep blaming themselves and living in the shame. So I'm here to just say, we're going to break the stigma. We're going to just shatter everything. And I know all of this, not from, being a health coach and not from the certifications, but because I'm actually a recovered emotional eater of over 40 years. Mm. And there was a time in my life when I was 150 pounds, I was overweight. There was a time in my life when I was 110 pounds and I was a competitive athlete. I was a mountain bike racer, and it didn't matter. So I ate my emotions on the daily basis, like every single day. Food was my comfort. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. So at the FBI, very stressful job. And every day I would dump a family-sized bag of M&Ms on the desk, and I had to color code them. And
you color coded them?
I did.
Why? Wait, why?
Because I'm that brain type. I like things in order.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. I like it.
And I would get the peanut M&Ms because we got to get our protein in. That was the justification. So what I would do is I would speed eat the M&Ms with my left hand, and I would crank out the PowerPoint deck with my right hand. I mean, I would work as fast as humanly possible and eat faster. So that was during my time at the FBI. But fast forward, we're going to talk about just a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And this is actually really embarrassing to admit because, I mean, it's one thing, oh yeah, I was at the FBI and emotionally eating all the things. But fast forward, I had already resigned. I had already become a health coach. So I'm a health coach. I'm supposed to know better, do better, all the things. So this is a little embarrassing. But every Thursday, I would start looking forward to Friday afternoon because Friday started the treat weekend. Mm. And maybe your listeners can relate that they've been just pulled in a million directions. They get career and family, and comfort food is just that one place that's quiet and it takes the edge off. And that's what it was for me. And I'm a Pennsylvania girl. So I love the sweet salty combination. So I would take a pint of salted caramel ice cream. And in my head, the pint was divided into thirds. So third on Friday, third on Saturday, third on Sunday. And for someone who ate healthy pretty much all the time, I was like, okay, that makes sense. Because what do we say? Everything in moderation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd put my spoon in the container and I just savor that first bite and savor that second bite because mindful eating, all these things are taught. But the next thing I know, my spoon is scraping the bottom of the container. So that's Friday. So then what happened Saturday, I would eat another pint. And then Sunday, I would eat another pint. And then go back on Monday, just being good, being disciplined. But there was one Sunday. And it wasn't just that I was finishing that third pint. It was one of those where I wanted more. And like my spoon was in that groove trying to get out that last bit of chocolate that actually tasted more like cardboard than chocolate. And I'm staring at the bottom and I'm staring at me trying to get this tiny little bit of chocolate out of the groove with my spoon. And I'm like, Holly Bertone, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? I was like, why can't I just have a few bites of ice cream like a normal person? Why do I have to start and then inhale? And it wasn't even that I was enjoying it. I was inhaling it. And there was this shame that was just suffocating. Again, because I'm a health coach and I should know better. I should be leading by example. But in that second, I wasn't quite ready to face the truth. So I justified it. So I said, I'm at a healthy weight. I eat healthy most of the time and I work hard. So I deserve a treat. Mm. And maybe your listeners can relate to a time when they're putting on these appearances that they've got it all together. That, on the outside, life is good, posting the happies on Facebook and going outside and just everything's fine. But behind closed doors, it's like you're a hot mess express and you don't want anyone to find out. And that's when I was like, okay, I can't just justify my way out of this. And I went upstairs and I went to my walk-in closet. And I looked around and I realized how many clothes that I had in my closet that I was not wearing because they were tight and they were uncomfortable. And even though I was quote unquote a healthy weight, these clothes that I had loved, I wasn't wearing anymore. And I was thinking back to when I was 40 pounds overweight. and how I'd never look in the mirror because I hated how fat I looked. And I remember back to when I was 110 pounds and going through breast cancer and autoimmune disease, and how much I hated what those diseases did to my body.
Mm.
And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to go back to that place again. So that's when I made a decision that something needs to change. And that's a hard place to be when you're in a profession and you're supposed to be doing something that you're not, because that's what you're teaching.
Talk
so this
about,
was
imposter syndrome setting.
Yes, 100%.
I've definitely been there, so I appreciate it.
Yeah,
sure.
100%. And yeah, that I don't think it matters how much you weigh or how healthy you eat most of the time, because the truth that I realized was that if you're struggling with emotional eating, that food noise is always going to win. And that was when I was like, you know what? It's not just me. There are so many women in midlife, and we're battling these demanding lifestyles, and then this food noise, and then the shame. And that's really when I was like, I'm putting FBI hat back on, because I wanted to uncover what the weight loss industry doesn't talk about, because it's not always the calories and the cardio and the weight in the food. We need to get to those root cause triggers. We need to address those automatic eating patterns that are driving those behaviors, the patterns that control everything. Because in order for things to change, you actually need to rewire those patterns to work in your favor. So that's when everything changed for me. And then that's when everything changed for the women who I coach. And I think it's important, Bria, to just share that, yes, I am a certified health coach. I'm a certified holistic health coach. I look at things holistically. But everything that I'm going to share today and how I coach and just how I show up in life, it was built on those food monsters that I've overcome, along with the skills from FBI counterintelligence. We're talking analyzing patterns and countering threats. And then I combine that with the brain science of neuroplasticity. And that's where the magic happens.
Oh, well, I'm so excited to hear more about that piece. I want to go back to something you said. You said we put on, like, we work so hard so that no one else can see, to hide from other people, like that we're this hot mess express. Do you also find that we work really hard to hide that from ourselves?
100%.
And that's kind of where it's like, before we can even get to the neuroplasticity, before we can, we need to kind of have that moment like you had, where we're like, okay, something's got to give here. I'm ready to change.
And I'll give you a perfect example, because I see this all the time, is that, and I'll see a woman sitting at lunch, eating this sad little salad. She's not happy. She's choking it down, and then goes home, and at night, watching Netflix, and it's just game over with the snacks.
Yeah.
And it's trying to keep up these appearances. But what our brain does is, when our brain is a liar. Like, our brain lies to us all the time because it wants to keep us safe and it wants to keep us alive. So when we're confronted with something that goes against the narrative of what we want it to be, our brain is going to lie, because our brain wants to keep us comfortable. So our brain's going to justify, our brain's going to make up excuses. Our brain is going to do everything that it can to keep us happy and comfortable. Our brain basically wants us to be on a couch, curled up with a blanket with a puppy dog by our side and a cup of hot cocoa, watching Hallmark movies. Like, that is the brain's equivalent of comfort. That's what it wants 24/7. It does not want us to be in danger. It does not want us to be in conflict. So that's what our brain is trying to do. So we come up with this belief or this, like these kind of appearances and the justifications and all the things. And our brain's like, oh, no. So we're going to justify, and we're going to say, it's okay.
Absolutely. That's so what you're saying, what I hear you saying is, in that moment, like when you are eating, when your spoon is scraping the bottom, I love the way you tell that story, at the bottom of the third pint, and you're thinking, what are you doing? And your brain is like justifying it. Is that your
100%?
It's like, ooh, let's not be stressed about this. Let's
Right.
be safe in this pocket.
Right.
No, it's okay. That's what the brain is doing there.
100%.
Oh,
because when we get stressed, or when we're confronted with something, we turn on our sympathetic stress state, the fight, flight, or freeze. So our brain doesn't want to go there. Our brain doesn't want to accept that. That's energy. We don't want more than that. We just want to be hanging out in the parasympathetic. We just want to hang out and rest and digest.
Yeah. And how would you define emotional eating? Like any type of eating that is not for hunger, any type of eating that isn't real food? Like how do you define emotional eating where we know like, oh, this is because I feel like I mean, it's very rare that people are going to overeat broccoli. I
Right.
understand that because it just doesn't have the same chemical aspect to it that
Right.
sugar does. And I'm a huge ice cream fan and an M&M person. So I
Yeah.
completely appreciate both of your stories.
Yes.
And I think we're not the only ones listening who can appreciate that. But yeah, how do we know, when even we're emotionally eating, even if maybe we've somehow also justified that, oh, it's healthy, this food that I'm eating. I can think
Mhm.
of a lot of protein bars or protein balls or gluten-free this or, these kinds of things. How do we know
Right. Right.
what is emotional eating and what is not?
Yeah, that is such a great question. And I like to think of it from the perspective, and I'm just going to keep it super easy because if we're eating in response to some kind of big emotion or stress or boredom or loneliness or any kind of like anger, resentment, agitation, frustration, overwhelm, any of these kind of big emotions, when we feel this coming up, and that is what's driving us to eat. So it's the difference between belly hungry and brain hungry. So if your stomach is actually hungry, you're actually hungry for food versus your brain is saying food equals comfort. And right now I need comfort.
I love that. That's a great definition because the reality is when we're stressed, like when our body experiences, our brain experiences that stress, I mean, our digestion really slows. So hunger
Yeah.
really should actually, be suppressed at that point in time. So it's almost
Right.
like, regardless, it's not a good time to be eating because we need to bring that body into calm. Okay. And do you feel like women, like for you, I mean, you obviously had a lot going on in life and then you'd made this career pivot, you'd been through cancer, you'd been through so much, but do you find in your practice that this stuff starts to come to a head for women in midlife more than maybe when we're younger?
I think so. And I think because the demands just get more and more and more,
Mhm.
and we haven't been taught ways to control, excuse me, we haven't been taught ways to control our emotions. And when I say control our emotions, it means to appreciate our emotions. Our emotions aren't good or bad.
Mhm.
They're just information. They're just telling us a story. But we get really uncomfortable when we're stressed, when we're overwhelmed, when we're anxious, when we're angry, when we're agitated, when we're frustrated. And we never really learned what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So, we hear, oh, just go take a bubble bath, or oh, go get your nails done, or oh, self care. But then what happens? You do the thing for an hour, right? Let's say you're getting your nails done. You get back in the car, your keys in the ignition, and guess what? The weight of you feel good in a minute, but the weight of the world's back on your shoulders. And you're like, okay, well, my nails look great, but I'm still stressed.
Mhm.
So, we kind of hear this narrative of self care from that perspective and don't really address what those emotions mean and how we can actually hang
Mhm.
out with our emotions and be okay with them.
Ooh.
We've got we've got our phones right in our hands. The second we're standing in line at the grocery store and there's one person in front of us, if we're not immediately at the checkout, what are we doing? We're on our phones scrolling.
Yeah.
We can't have any downtime anymore. We're uncomfortable with that space.
Yeah.
So I think that's number one. But then number two, you've got all of these demands between, kids and then kids getting older. So big transitions. I mean, my stepson, I've raised him since he was 5. He's 22 now.
Mhm.
So, he's out of the home. And, we're getting divorced. I'm divorced as well. We've taken care of our aging parents. They talk about the 2.5 kids. Well, yeah, they don't tell you that point 0.5 of a child is also taking care of your aging parent. Like that's what that point 0.5 is. So, and then our parents are passing away, and then we're getting older, and now our friends are even passing away. Like it's a lot
Yeah.
that a lot on our plate that
Yeah.
we're dealing with and that we're processing,
Yeah.
along with not necessarily having those skills.
Yeah.
So I definitely think it's just the perfect storm in this time of life for this to come to head.
Yeah.
And not to mention, like everything's changing, hormones, metabolism, like everything. So our body is now like just ripe for this to happen.
Absolutely. And that doesn't even touch on, the fact that along with what we're seeing and scrolling on our phones, the blue light emission, the stress, of whatever's happening in the world that we're being fed in that way. Like there's just a lot more stress in general coming at us. And okay, so that's a perfect storm. And I want to get into this then. Okay. I want to get into sort of the whys and everything with you, but first I just want to ask a bit about these kind of like these high achieving women, because I would argue that anyone who's listening to a podcast is probably a high achieving woman. She's like,
100%.
I'm trying to grow. That's why we're listening to. So I think that's who's listening to us right now. I mean, that's what we do, you and I both. So what makes it even more complex for them, do you think, when it comes to things like this emotional eating piece? Or
I think, and it's interesting because that's who I work with, or, the high achievers. And I think there's a couple different things that's going on. Number one is that we were the girl who sat in the front of the class, raising our hand, getting straight A's, having the answers. We were taught to be the good girl. We were taught that good grades equals we have value. Mm-hmm. We were taught that if we are good in sports, we have value. We were taught that if we are good in band, we have value, or whatever it is that we did. Yeah. When we are good at the thing, we have value. Yeah. So this is now, and then there's typically, food attached to it as well. Oh, you got straight A's, let's go out for ice cream. Or, hey, great job on the game, let's go out for ice cream. So, we're also in this place where we're growing up that food equals reward as well. So we have these tendencies that we carry with us, the being the overachiever, the workaholic, the perfectionist, and we strive for the best. But when we look at traditional diet culture, our brains don't follow the math of diet culture. Our brains follow patterns. Mm-hmm. So we're basically trying to play checkers when it comes to just jumping in a diet and then having it fail, and then jumping in a diet and having it fail. But we need to play chess. So,
that's a good example. I like that. I like that comparison.
Oh, thank you. So, and I want you to think about that from this perspective, and maybe your listeners can relate, that learning a new skill, so driving a car, or whether they were learning to play an instrument or a sport, or even at their job. I mean, the majority of us, like in the older side, we didn't grow up with the internet. So we had to learn skills and technologies.
Yeah, we had to open a dictionary sometimes.
Right. Britannica Encyclopedia. Yeah. So these skills follow a pattern. When you start, you don't know the thing. Mm-hmm. So you practice and you practice and you practice and you get better. Mm-hmm. And depending on your kind of natural agility, you're going to get the thing. I mean, I wasn't good at basketball, but I excelled at field hockey, right? And the more I practiced, the better I got. So this is how we're brought up, that you practice the skill, you're going to get better. But diets don't work that way. Mm-hmm. And emotional eating doesn't work that way. You don't just go on a diet and get better at the skill of dieting. You go on the diet fails you, and then you're like, I'm a failure. And you internalize it, and you give it some kind of morality rather than taking a step back and saying, okay, I actually need to look at this from a strategic perspective.
Ooh, I like that. And I really love that example that you gave about the checkers versus chess, and looking at something like, like weight loss or feeling better in our body as working out more and eating less is really trying to play checkers in a chess game, isn't it? It's that. And maybe that's where also with high achievers, where I think high achievers are used to achieving success and and so sometimes success can even come easier to high achievers because they have that. But it's
100%. And then it doesn't. And especially at this age, you're like, okay, my husband just decided to not look at food today and lost 5 pounds. My friends are losing weight. Like, what is it about me that, it's this, the scale keeps going up instead of down.
Down. Yeah. No matter what I do. Okay. I really love, first, I just really appreciate how you explain this and just how you really have the compassion and the understanding. I think a lot of women listening can really see themselves in the stories that you're sharing and can appreciate where you're coming from. So now what then? We now know, okay, we've had this oh my OMG moment, or this like deep dark night of the soul moment hitting the bottom of the pint for the 10th month in a row, and we're ready to make a change. So how do we start to do that?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So good to get into this. Can I talk for a second about what doesn't work before we jump into what does?
Yeah, I think
because I think it's important. I know you and I talked before, like about the myths that we are fed. And there's 3 of them. I just want to go over them really quick because I think it's important to know, okay, what am I doing that I probably shouldn't be doing versus let's just jump into what we should do. So, and I'm going to lump them together, the everything in moderation, the mindful eating, and the willpower. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say a caveat. They do work. I am a proponent of them. But if those food cravings are so obsessive, if the emotional eating isn't under control, they're not going to work until you get to the other side. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to be like, oh, these are the best things ever. Mm-hmm. But they don't work. And especially willpower. We think willpower, right? Because all of these systems that were successful in life, that's a lot of it's discipline and willpower and all the things. Yeah. But that is the equivalent of a SWAT team armed with a Cabbage Patch Kid. Okay. Like you've got the armor, you're looking good, but you're completely helpless. Like you've got a Cabbage Patch Kid trying to whack away at the cravings.
It's not doing it. It's not working very well. It's pretty exhausting.
It is not working well. Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to share that. And especially when we think of dopamine. Mm. So when we have these food cravings, our brain decides in less than half of a second that we are now obsessing about the food. So we see it or we hear about it or we have this emotional thing going on that we're like, oh, I need the food to comfort myself. Our brain in less than half of a second decides that we want the food. And then dopamine kicks in. Now we think dopamine, okay, Holly, isn't that like the reward chemical? And it is, think puppies, babies, things like that. But dopamine is actually the anticipation chemical. Mm. So that dopamine is kicking in that less than half of a second that your brain is making that decision, I'm going to eat the food. So the dopamine is kicking in. We're getting that hit, that babies and puppies hit of, oh, this feels good before the food even touches our lips. Mm. And that's what I think is so important to know, because when we talk about willpower and moderation and the mindful eating, well, again, that's the SWAT team with the Cabbage Patch Kid, because your brain and the dopamine is firing in all cylinders and it's always going to win. Yeah. And when you think about it from the perspective of, are your cravings are you ravenously craving the junk food, the comfort food, first thing in the morning? Or is it the end of the day?
Mm-hmm. Always the end of the day.
Always the end of the day.
Because you run out of energy.
Right. So I like to frame this. I have so I grew up in Pennsylvania, middle of nowhere. So I never learned to parallel park.
Never.
I moved to Alexandria, Virginia. So we were right outside of the city. And even though that's pretty much all I had to do, I was like, I have no interest in parallel parking. So I would park far away. I would drive around trying to find, something I could pull into. I'd park in a garage. Like I would do anything I could to not parallel park. It was absolutely horrible. I was the worst parallel parker in history. I had no interest in learning. Well, fast forward, I got a Hyundai Kona in 2021. Okay. Do you want to know what a Hyundai Kona has in it?
Does it have like an auto parallel parking system?
It actually doesn't. It's not quite that fancy, but it has a backup camera.
Oh, okay.
So overnight, I could parallel park.
Because you could see.
Because I could see. And I did not get more skills. I did not, that achiever thing that we just talked about, getting all of those skills. I did not all of a sudden get new skills. I just got a new tool. And that tool allowed me to parallel park. So when we're looking at, and my methodology, it's a 3-step methodology, and it's combining counterintelligence tactics with the science, the brain science of neuroplasticity. So, a lot of people are like, oh, that sounds confusing, or neuroplasticity and brain rewiring, like, you have to stick electrodes in your brain or something, like what's going on here? And literally that is all that it is. It is giving your brain a backup camera so that you can parallel park.
So what is that? So, and these are giving it a backup, like giving it a tool, in other words, like
yes.
You're giving your brain a tool. And
exactly.
Obviously I want everyone listening to go and follow you and learn more about these exact things, but can you give us an example of some of these things, or what this?
Yeah. So I can go through the 3 steps real quick.
Yeah, let's do that. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. So step 1, and I want you to think of your listeners to think of like a path in the woods. So your brain is like a well-worn path in the woods. Mm-hmm. So our goal is to create a new path. But what do we have to do? We're in the woods. Right now, it's not a path. It's overgrown, and it's thorns, and it's rocks and snakes and spiders. And it exactly like our brain creating change. Like, okay, I don't want to do that, but we have to get out our work gloves and our boots, and we have to make a new path. It is going to require some work to do that. Mm-hmm. So step 1 is see it. And that is really where we're just going to uncover those hidden patterns. We're going to look at the hidden patterns. We're going to look at the hidden triggers behind the emotional eating, so you can understand why. Mm-hmm. Why is the biggest question. Because when you understand why, you're like, okay, now I know why. Now I know what I can do about it. Yeah. So we're creating this new path in the woods. And I can give you a perfect example of this. When last year I spoke at MIT, and my flight was delayed. So I'm sitting there in the airport, and I'm watching people get really agitated. So obviously everyone's stressed. The flight is delayed. So I'm watching people respond to that stress response. Mm. So they went to Dunkin' Donuts, got bags of donuts and bagels. So they ate their way out of the stress. And then some of them went over to the bar and started drinking at 8:00 in the morning. So they drank themselves out of the stress. Yeah. So that was just the awareness. I mean, and I'm watching it with other people, but that's that awareness of, okay, when this emotion or when this event or when this trigger happens, then I eat. And that's all the awareness is. So, and then number 2 is stop it. And this is where we learn those FBI inspired tactics to actually interrupt the cycle in real time. Because what we want to do is stop those cravings before they take over. When you think of that path in the woods, so you've got that old path that your brain loves to go down. The new path is still in progress. So it's still kind of, sketchy looking. You're like, oh, I don't know if I want to go down that path yet. Yeah. So your brain's coming down the trail, and it sees that fork in the path. You're like, well, I always want to go down the path that I know. And so step 2 is taking that stop at that fork in the road and saying, we're not going to go down the old path. We're going to start going down that new path. So it's basically using FBI inspired tactics to interrupt that in real time. Yeah. To be able to stop those cravings before they take over, to be able to stop those cravings before that point, your brain does that 0.5 second of decision that the dopamine kicks in. You're like, I need to have this. Yeah. So we are literally at that fork making it. Mm-hmm. And the way that we do this is really cool. These are called countermeasures. Now, and are like, okay, what are countermeasures? I know. It's like, your face was like, huh?
Measures. Okay, let's do it. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it. So I did these in FBI Counterintelligence. They're strategic actions designed to prevent the threat before it happens. So in the context of emotional eating, they're tactical interventions to intercept those cravings before they actually take over. Right? You're like, oh, light bulb, I got it. Right? Yeah. So, and to think about it, in the context of what I used to do for a living, you've got Russian spies over here at the FBI, and you've got cake day at the office, emotional eating. And the reality is a threat is a threat. Like your goal is to stop the threat before it takes over.
Yeah. The brain doesn't like decipher the quantity really of that threat. Right. It's just like threat. That's it. And the body freaks. The body jumps into action.
Yeah. And you think of dopamine, like okay, so we got a puppy during the pandemic. I have a pug. His name is Hannibal. I thought it was hilarious to name my pug Hannibal.
That's a good name though, especially for a pug. It was a good
right. Said he's got his little tongue that just constantly sticks out. He's adorable. But yeah, what do you do when you get a puppy? You've got to potty train them.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point they figure it out, and mine rings a bell to go outside, but you either take them out at their appropriate time, or they ring a bell, or you open the door, or whatever, they run outside. But we can potty train our brain, that we can potty train that dopamine, just like you can a puppy. So that now you're like, okay, just like a grown dog, the brain is like, okay, now we're going to, go ring the doorbell or go do the thing. And we talked about these big emotions. Remember at the beginning, we were talking about the big emotions that we have that were, I don't know what to do with them. So I'm going to scroll, or I'm going to drink, or I'm going to eat, or I'm going to do the thing. And now this is at the place where you can really see an emotion as more neutral. Like, and I like to say this is like Scooby-Doo, the Scooby-Doo villain taking the mask off. Right? It is just a big emotion in a trench coat. That is all that it is. And we're like, okay, my big one's anxiety. Anxiety, for whatever reason, just loves to hang out every once in a while. So when it comes, it used to be crippling, and now anytime anxiety shows up, I'm like, hey, what's up? We have a little conversation. But it's being able to be okay with those emotions, knowing that they are a part of you. They're not the enemy. It's not good or bad. They're here to tell a story. Yeah. And we're like, okay, let's listen. What's up? What do you got going on? What's the story you're going to tell me? As being able to be okay with those emotions so that they don't take over.
Yeah, I love that. I remember reading a book, and they talked about, you are not your emotion. You want to be the watcher of your emotion. Like, be the 100%. Like, you're not your pain. Be the watcher of your pain. Just be aware. And I think that's what you're saying there, which is so beautiful. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we spot it, we stop it. And then what's our third step?
Yeah. So we've got see it, stop it. And then step 3 is shift it. And then this is where we're going to rewire those automatic responses so that you actually can have that healthier relationship with food. So this is where we're in that path of the woods, and we've got a new shiny path that our brain is now automatically going down. And that old path is starting to get overgrown. Yeah. Right. So the goal of this step is to make that new path shiny and familiar. The goal is to make that new path the couch, the blanket, the cup of hot chocolate, watching Hallmark movies. Yeah. Right. That is the goal. And there's a study that was done in the year 2000. And it was done on London taxi cab drivers. You might be like, okay, Holly, what does London taxi drive cabbers have to do with emotional eating? I love this study, because what did we not have in the year 2000? We didn't have Garmin's and GPS and smartphones and, anything attached to our car. We had maps.
We had MapQuest. That's what we had in 2000. Didn't we? We'd Google it. Printed it.
Some of us maybe, yeah. But most of us they get in the back of the seat and pull it out, and you got this got to unfold the thing, and yeah. So we had maps. Well, London taxi cab drivers, they actually go through this rigorous training. They actually have to learn the streets of London before they could become taxi cab drivers. Yeah. And what they did was they studied the hippocampus, which is actually the part of the brain responsible for memory and navigation. And that part of the brain was bigger in these London taxi cab drivers than it was in the control group. And the drivers who were driving the longest, the brain was actually even bigger. Wow. So it's proof that our brain can change. And that's what I love about this, is that our brain can change. And the way that you kind of think about it from that perspective of going from obsessing about the food and the food noise, like me, literally scraping the edges of the bottom of the container to get that last bit of chocolate out, to the place where you can see, I have ice cream in my freezer because I do Instagram reels, and sometimes I have ice cream as a prop. I've even had I haven't technically eaten sugar in over a year, but I still eat, if I'm doing a bite and, whatever, and spit it out, but I'm like, it does nothing to me. So it's being that level of obsessive to, it means absolutely nothing to me. Wow. And the way to really share that I really want to share this. So my stepson, when he was a little guy, And I don't know, maybe your listeners can relate to kids brushing their teeth, but it was like pulling teeth to get him to brush his teeth. And he would run the toothbrush under the water.
Just to pretend that it was wet.
Yeah. He's like, oh, I brushed my teeth. I'm like, let me smell your breath. You didn't, like busted. I'm like, oh God, that's disgusting. Go brush your teeth. Yeah. So, but at some point we figure it out, right? We as adults, hopefully, we don't have Post-it notes up on our bathroom mirror telling us we're wonderful human beings. We're awesome. We're going to crush it today because we brushed our teeth.
Yeah.
Right? We don't listen to endless podcasts or endless, books on Audible about brushing our teeth. Right. We don't have apps on our phone dinging us to remind us to brush our teeth. Here's the other thing, Bria, is that let's say you're running late in the morning. Let's say you forgot your keys. You can't find your glasses. You got in an argument with your spouse and the dog pooped on the carpet. Maybe the spouse pooped on the carpet too, right? You're still getting out of the house brushing your teeth. Oh like you're still going to leave the house. You're still going to brush the teeth before you leave the house.
So true. I love that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what happened that morning. You're still going to leave the house. You have brushed your teeth. Yeah. That is exactly what this is. Mm-hmm. That is exactly how powerful this rewiring is. And this 3-step process is going from that place where you're obsessing over food. So to the place where it has absolutely no control over you.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so, it really, especially your example on, well, the toothbrush is great, like so accurate. That's so funny. But the paths, when you explain the paths, like that is so important for people to visualize. I think that when it comes to any habit creation, right? Any changing in behavior, like recognizing where we have to stop and be like, whoa, that's not the right path. And I mean, even if you imagine like going on a hike you're not that familiar with, you're still inevitably, I'm always like, did I choose the right path on this?
Yes.
Walking down that path and you're thinking, wait, is this the right way? It's not as worn as I'm, as I'd like it to be there. And can we talk, for a minute, just about remembering, especially, you're a woman, you're doing all these hundreds of things that we're talking about. We know it's harder in midlife. We know it's in peak performance. Can we talk about the patience and maybe the self-compassion around the fact that I know at the beginning you said it does take work, and it does. Like there are going to be times, right, when you forget and you probably take the old path, and there are going to be times where you're like, oh, I just want to take the old path. It's easier, Like what is the, I know people are always looking for time frames, but can you just talk a little bit around that patience, that the challenge of that, and how it maybe hockey sticks into getting easier?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question. This is so insightful, and I want to talk about it from the perspective of short, medium, long term.
Yeah.
Because again, we're not playing checkers, we're playing chess.
Yeah.
And when we think short term, the students that I have in the program, it is about 10 days on average, 10 days to 2 weeks, where they're coming back and they said, I put the fork down. Mm-hmm. They're still eating the thing, but they put the fork down. So they're like, oh, Holly, I ate 2 cookies, but then instead of inhaling the rest like I normally do, I just put them away. Yeah. Like that's the win. So we think in our head, the win is we're just going to go from 0 to not having any cravings, but it is going to take time. That path, that path is well worn. It is decades of ingrained in there. It is going to take some time, but we can start to see it literally within the first 10 days to 14 days, that period of going through this process and saying, okay, yeah, I still ate a little bit, but the win is in the awareness. The win is saying, I actually put it down. Yeah. And that's what I love to tell my students is the win is in the awareness. Don't judge yourself over how much you ate. Just celebrate those wins and celebrate the awareness. Celebrate, I put it down at some point. So that's really short term. That's immediate. Now, we also think about it from the perspective of medium term. And I know everyone's like, oh, habit 21 days. So everything should be fixed in 21 days. And there's actually a lot of research that's looking way beyond the 21 days into more 100 days. And, and especially when you are looking at something, this isn't like a new skill, like, like, what did they say? Learning to ride a bike or, learning a new AI app or something like that. This is a legitimate rewiring of decades.
Right.
So
Learning
when I'm
away.
hearing that 100 days, I'm like, that's a much better indicator of something to think about, that, kind of 3 to 4 months out. But from that bigger perspective, I'd actually be interested in hearing your thoughts on this too, because I personally believe to view it in a 1 year kind of container. And I know a lot of other colleagues in the industry are saying that 1 year as well, and just really looking at it from that long-term approach. So, from the perspective of, like, let's say legitimate, full-time, long-term, sustainable change,
Mm.
let's talk about a year. It's probably going to happen a lot sooner than that. But
Yeah.
if you can set the frame of 1 year, you're going to just completely, like, time's just going to go away. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if it's today or tomorrow or the next day. You're just going to keep working, and you're going to keep doing the things to achieve it.
Yeah. And that's, I will say, we always talk about as we get older, oh gosh, time goes so quickly. Like that is one of the wins that we get when it comes to
Yeah.
habit creation in midlife and beyond, is that gosh, time goes so fast. So before you know it, it's month after month after month. It just slips away. So if you can, catch those moments. But yeah, I would say the same. I think it takes a good chunk of time because change requires energy. And I think it would be very different if we can scoop up, if I could scoop up a woman who needs help and take her away to like a 6-week yoga retreat. I'm sure we could make change a lot faster because there's nothing else to think about but the yoga we're doing that day and the beautiful food we're eating and the peaceful, but there's so many moving parts to our day, to our life, to our emotions. And that's why I think it can take that time, so that it no longer requires our energy to change anymore. So I completely agree with you. I think a year is a really beautiful mark, and there's a really good
Yeah.
chance it's going to happen faster than that.
And keep in mind, we're also creating change. Like you just said, like on top of that chaotic, hectic life and lifestyle,
Yeah.
with all of these other things going on, in addition to our hormones, in addition to just all of these life changes. So we're also creating change in an environment that's constantly changing too. And that can be very unsettling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where having, developing these habits that are solid ground for us during, and this is where I think perimenopause and menopause can look really different from woman to woman. It really does depend a lot on the solid ground that your feet are on, those solid habits we already have. But yeah, that's beautiful. This has been incredible. You're such a beautiful storyteller, Holly. Like you really
Oh, thank
help
you.
and like give some real tangible things. I know you mentioned maybe you have a gift or something that you can, for anyone listening, because I know this is an area. I mean, look, this is something that I used to struggle with, and I don't anymore, but certainly, and I've been in the wellness industry for 15, 16, 17 years now. So I was one of those wellness coaches that felt the same thing that you did, dig into the bottom. I was like a Ben and Jerry's girl all the way.
Yeah.
So I totally appreciate it. So tell the audience how we can find you, how they can learn more from you, because I know they'll benefit from it.
Thank you so much, Bria. And I really want to do something very special for your audience. And especially since they stayed, I mean, this is almost an hour. So they stayed until the end of the episode. So what I want to share with you guys is something that I only offer my paying clients. I only offer the students in my program. So you're not going to be able to find this anywhere online. And actually, I'm actually going to do two gifts. I'm going to do two gifts. But before I dive in, let me explain who this is for. So this is for you specifically if you are a high achieving woman in midlife and you're not in control around food. You're stress eating, mindlessly snacking, you're hijacked by those cravings and the food noise.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bundle, and it's called the Emotional Eating Tactical Blueprint. So it's got two things in it. So first is a personality and psychological analysis. It's a quiz, but it's actually set up like a psychological analysis. So you're going to uncover your number one emotion and stress eating trigger. So you can finally understand what's actually driving your triggers rather than feeling like a victim to them. And this is crazy. Everyone who, in fact, I had multiple people reach out on me on Instagram, even just today, and they're like, this is scary accurate. It is really accurate. So I know that's going to be hugely valuable. But the second thing is, this is really cool. And again, this is the one that is only for my clients, only for my pay clients. And this is more than a standard training. It's called the Crime Scene Files Emotional Eating Edition. And it's like a true crime style. So you're going to actually go from understanding your patterns to actually having tactical tools to intercept those triggers and behaviors the next time that this happens. So it's true crime style. So, if your listeners are true crime junkies, or they love the true crime podcasts, or the CSI shows on TV, or the Law and Order shows, you're going to get just totally geeked out with this. And there's no diets anywhere. It's a training that I've never seen anywhere else. It is so cool. So if you want the blueprint bundle, it's the emotional eating tactical blueprint bundle. That's big to understand. But if you want it as my thanks for listening, just go to my Instagram at holly.bertone, Bertone, and just DM me the word blueprint. That's all you have to remember is the word blueprint, and I will send it to you. So it's holly.bertone, Bertone. DM the word blueprint. That's all you need to remember. And I will send you the entire bundle.
That's amazing. And I'll put your Instagram link, your website down below in the show notes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
You can just swipe up and go do that, and make sure to write blueprint. Holly, thank you so much. Thank you for your energy and your time today, your, beautiful ideas and how you share them, and just how you show up for women in this world. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you, Bri. I appreciate you.
All right, sisters, you have some amazing new tools, backup cameras, we will now call them. So go out, take advantage of them, take some action today, and be more in your life and not just less on a scale. We'll catch you in the next episode.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Period Whisperer podcast. If you liked this episode, take 30 seconds right now to write a review on iTunes, and then reach out to me directly on Instagram at Bria_period_whisperer, and message me there with a screenshot of your review. As a thank you, I will give you a customized free hormone audit to get you on your way to the best health of your life in midlife.